Yashodanandana Bhagadhanarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Yopi Janavara Yopi Janavara Yashodanandana Bhagadhanarandana Yashodanandana Bhagadhanarandana Yashodanandana Bhagadhanarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacha Satara Sata Shri Śrimad Hey Divine Grace Shabaya Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalila Vishnu Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacha Satara Sata Shri Śrimad Hey Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi All glory to some of the devotees. All glory to some of the devotees. All glory to some of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga and Srila Prabhupada. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Additional Pastimes, chapter titled A Visit to Boston. Early one morning, as Srila Prabhupada walked through the neighborhood of Alston with Hansarupa and Gaurasundar, Hansarupa mentioned that a famous Swami had recently given a talk at Arlington Street Church, where Prabhupada was also scheduled to speak. What does he say? Prabhupada asked. Hansarupa said that he had heard that the Swami had said he was God. Immediately, Prabhupada began to argue, destroying the Swami's alleged claim to be God. They say they are God and the dog is God. Prabhupada began. As he spoke, Satsarup and Gaurasundar walked beside him, sometimes holding back a low tree branch or watching on Prabhupada's behalf for traffic at the street crossings. But mostly they were concentrating on Prabhupada's words. Satsarup could understand that Swamiji was expending energy just to instruct him, to equip him to defeat such arguments. He tried to remember every word exactly as Swamiji was speaking it. Quote, if everyone is God, Prabhupada continued, then why is God worshipped all over the world in temples and churches? And why are these gods shoe-kicking each other? Do they know what God is, that they say that they are God? Do they have an idea of what God is? God is the controller. Are they controlling the universe? Ask them these questions. Are they omnipotent and omniscient? These are qualities of God. If you are God, do you know what I am thinking? Because God is all-knowing. They should not be allowed to say these things. They should be curbed with these questions. Prabhupada punctuated his talk by sudden stops. He was angry. It was as if he were charging his disciples for allowing this nonsense. I am God for allowing this nonsense. I am God talk to go unchecked. Why didn't they stop these rascals? He looked at them with eyes flashing. Were they meeting the challenges of the atheists? They should be. They should be fighting. And these are the arguments they should use. They shouldn't doubt. We understand God is vast, Prabhupada continued. We are similar to him in quality. But we are infinitesimal. If they are God, then how is it that they have come to this doggish state? You may be God, but for the present moment, they are not God. They will admit that for the present moment they are not God, but that they will become God in the future. But what kind of God is this? And how have they fallen under illusion? That means illusion is stronger than God, that they have come under illusion. So the God then is Maya, or not God. They may be God, but they are not the Param Brahma, the Supreme God. We have the definition of God, that he is all-powerful. This Swami is not all-powerful. If some poor fellow came to him on the street, he could not stop from getting a beating. And if he got a toothache, he would be ruined as God. God is all wealthy. This Swami is begging for money, and he is God. God is all-knowing. They are not even intelligent. To surrender to Krishna is intelligent. They are kicking each other, and they are fallen in the conditioned state. And they say they are God. These questions we put to them. They cannot answer them. Prabhupada continued his walk through a neighborhood of automobile showrooms, hamburger luncheonettes not yet opened, and bus stops crowded with workers who stared at the elderly Swami passing with his young followers. The devotees, Prabhupada said, are more interested in talking about Krishna and in chanting his name, than arguing. But because so many godless parties come forward and challenge, a Vaishnava must be able to argue on the basis of Shastra and sound logic. Srila Prabhupada ki. Very instructive. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 4th canto, 6th chapter, text 43, chapter titled Brahma Satisfies Lord Shiva. Tvameva Bhagavan Etach. Tvameva Bhagavan Etach. Shiva Shaktyo Sarupayo. Shiva Shaktyo Sarupayo. Vishvang Srijasi Pasyatsi. Vishvang Srijasi Pasyatsi. Kridan urna patoyata. Kridan urna patoyata. Please chant. Tvameva Bhagavan etat Shiva Shakto Parupayo.
Tvameva Bhagavan etat Shiva Shakti Swarupayo Vishwam Siddhipasati Tvameva Bhagavan etat Shiva Shakti Swarupayo Vishwam Siddhipasati Tvameva Bhagavan etat Shiva Shakti Swarupayo Vishwam Siddhipasati
Anyone else? Tvam, you, Eva, certainly, Bhagavan, O my Lord, etat, this, Shiva Shaktyo, being situated in your auspicious energy, Sarupayo, by your personal expansion, Vishvam, this universe, Srijasi, create, Pashi, maintain, Achi, annihilate, Kridan, working, Ornapata, spider's web, Yata, just like. Translation and purport by Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. My dear Lord, you create this cosmic manifestation, maintain it and annihilate it by expansion of your personality, exactly as a spider creates, maintains, and winds up its web. Please repeat. My dear Lord, you create this cosmic manifestation, maintain it, and annihilate it by expansion of your personality, exactly as a spider creates, maintains, and winds up its web. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In this verse, the word Shiva Shakti is significant. Shiva means auspicious, and Shakti means energy. There are many types of energies of the Supreme Lord, and all of them are auspicious. Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwar are called guna avatars, or incarnations of material qualities. In the material world, we compare these different incarnations from different angles of vision. But since all of them are expansions of the Supreme Auspicious, all of them are auspicious. Although sometimes we consider one quality of nature to be higher or lower than another. The mode of ignorance or tamagun is considered very much lower than the others, but in a higher sense it is also auspicious. The example may be given herein, that the government has both an educational department and criminal department. An outsider may consider the criminal department inauspicious, but from the government's point of view, it is as important as the education department. And therefore, the government finances both departments equally without discrimination. Om Jnana Tamandasya Gananjana Sakaya Chakshuram Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bhangum Langhai Tegaram Yat Kripatam Maham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Very interesting. Brahma satisfies Lord Shiva. Shri Shivara Govinda Dev Ki Jai. Their most beautiful lordship, Shri Shivara Govinda Dev Ki Jai. So he's obviously making every effort to pacify Lord Shiva. And it's interesting how Lord Brahma always gets these services. So we see that when the earth became overburdened by military mismanagement, that Bhumi, Mother Earth, and the demigods approach Lord Brahma and say, we need to meet with the Supreme Personality of God in this universe and Sweta-dweep. So they all went to the edge of the Karna, and there they manifest there's a sound coming? Okay. There the Lord manifests himself. But interestingly enough, the communication between the Supreme Lord and Lord Brahma was on a different platform. Hrideshi Arjunaticity, like in the Brahma Samhita. From within the heart, Lord Brahma was instructed by Lord Krishna what would happen. And then Lord Brahma relayed the message that all you demigods, now you go take birth. Soon the personality of God will appear. Everything has to be made ready. So this setting of the scene is almost, of course, we see this is very interesting in the beginning. Because then, as we're reading all these different pastimes, we should appreciate that these things are not just some random stories linked together and put in a book and someone decided, yeah, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. No. Everything is being sequentially arranged just for the Lord to exhibit these pastimes within the material world for the benefit of the devotees. And so we understand that he's coming, of course, to annihilate the miscreants and deliver the devotees. But this is all the same, just like here it said, the criminal department and education department. Technically, it's the same in the eyes of the government. It functions differently, but yet, and of course, according to one's perspective, he sees it differently. But one who has higher intelligence, who can analyze things, as like Prabhupada said, they should use the Shastra coupled with their realization and logic in order to defeat the atheists. It is not just that we parrot something and expect that someone will accept it. That we tell the Mayavadi, well, in the Bhagavad Gita, yeah, they've read the Bhagavad Gita. They've already, and from their point of view, adjusted it according to their own needs, how they want to exploit the situation. So it requires that you have to be able to give them a perspective that they don't have in order to bring them to the right understanding. And so that requires some internal realization, how the philosophy, how Prabhupada is explaining it, how we have to internalize it, and how we have to be able to speak it from a platform of conviction. And it's not theoretical. You can't convince everybody. People are every day talking about this theory, that theory. We see that a few years ago, there were so many theories, and people were calling it science. And it turned out it was all false. But by constantly repeating something, masses of people were convinced by this false information. So the whole world is going on the basis of false information. And therefore, Prabhupada is saying these Mayavadis are claiming to be God. So the only people who can properly address this are those who know God in truth. Right? So this is something that even the so-called Mayavadis, they don't appreciate how this material world is avyakta, vyakta, sanatana, that what is the actual nature of the manifestation, the dissolution, the eternal realm. They have no knowledge of these things. Because it would disturb their ability to pretend that they are God. And so here we're being exposed to a reality that they cannot accept. It doesn't even, for them, the scripture is simply mythology. And that's how they present it to the public. They want to somehow or other pose themselves as false gods. And so they have to find the gullible audience. And, traditionally that they always go after the youth. So you see, wherever there's a college campuses or wherever, like Prabhupada came to the Lower East Side, that's where the disaffected youth of the 60s, here in Berkeley and San Francisco and those places like that, they were congregated. And so in New York here, we had so many bogus yogis. So many. And they were gathering so many followers, cheating so many people. And then when they were exposed, they left a wake of disillusionment. And so people then became jaded. Jaded means they lost their ability to accept things simply on the basis of some false presentation. They were skeptical. So this is so what are we doing here? We're trying to counteract this false presentations, these little gods. It's like Pondraka. They pose themselves. Everybody knows who's Pondraka, right? Everybody's reading Krishna book. Pondraka was imitating Lord Krishna. He put on a set of extra arms. You can just imagine how foolish it must have looked. But he put on these extra arms and he was pretending to be Krishna. Just like we have plays sometimes here. But it's so obvious. But it's not obvious to the people who are simple. And when these people are speaking all this flowery language, they're gathering so many flowers. If you look around, these movements are huge in numbers. Huge. And there's no substance. What's that verse we were looking at yesterday, Bhakti Nick? That we understand that the wise, the sages, they see that what is the difference between that which has substance, that which is eternal. What's that? What is that? Vishayani? No. What's that? Come on, you too. What? Yeah, read it. Yeah, read it loud. Not the Mogas and Mogakarmana, the one before that we were discussing. Describes that the sages know that which is eternal has no cessation. Now which is not has no substance. Anyway, Bhakti Nick will find it. He was just very diligently looking up these shlokas yesterday. Nasato vijite bhavo, nabhavo vijite sura. Ubayopi dristontas, 20os tadvadarshana. This tadvadarshana, this is what the devotees have that the Mayavadis, the impersonators, they don't have. They don't know the truth. They don't see the truth. Even where the Evam Parampara one must approach a spiritual master. Why? Because he has seen the truth and he can impart the truth to you. So these other bogus yogis, they're presenting so many false premises. And people who have no knowledge, they're accepting it. There's like the famous analogy in Brooklyn is people who are selling the Brooklyn Bridge. And it become a catchword. It says, if you believe that, I have a bridge in Brooklyn I can sell you. You see, so this is, so people, and it actually happened. Actually, when they were constructing the Brooklyn Bridge, these people who were they're called con men for a reason, they would approach people and they would say, we're representing the company that's building the bridge, and we're selling shares in it. And once the bridge is complete, you'll get a cut of all the tolls that are being collected. There was no tolls, of course. But people fell for it. And they had very nice printed paper. It said that they owned shares in the Brooklyn Bridge. So it became so famous, it became so widespread, so many people were cheated that it's worked its way into the vernacular. That if you believe that, there's a bridge in Brooklyn I can sell you. So this way, our service, our attempts to try to mitigate this propaganda is of the highest order. And first, the basis of everything is the purification which is coming by this Agyata Sukriti. So therefore, this Harinam Sankirtan is our most important service. I think Prabhupada used to stress this so much because this is what, just by this chanting, the whole atmosphere is changed. The whole, not just where the location, not just the subway above the 7th Avenue line, but everywhere, because there's, I remember when we first heard this, that every sound vibration, not just the holy name, but every sound vibration travels in the ether 7 times around the earth. Because the ether is an element, and it's just like water. Vibrations carry further in water than they do in air. The ether has its own specific quality, and that it is the carrier of sound vibration. And so when you're chanting Hare Krishna, this sound vibration is traveling all around the globe, 7 times. All the way from the subway up to the ether and then around the globe. So it's very interesting how this is happening. So we're counteracting all the mundane sound vibration that's also traveling. It's not that we have exclusive rights to that ether. We should. We should work on that, right? But the more we chant, obviously, the more we counteract the ill effects of Kali Yuga. And so therefore, this is all over the world. How many temples there are? They're chanting. So this chanting is going on. And this chanting is holding Kali Yuga at bay. There's no doubt. And we see this practically speaking. There's the golden age has manifest in such a way that everyone can take part. But it requires discrimination. And therefore, Prabhupada said in the purport that intelligence means one who can analyze things in their proper perspective. And so what we're getting from reading and hearing is perspective. Others can't appreciate. They have no understanding what's required to crack the code, of these ancient scriptures. They don't know that it requires purification. It doesn't, the Shrinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. They don't know that. They don't know. To them, listening is a biological function or anthropology. They don't. This ability to hear with a pure heart completely escapes them. It doesn't resonate. So we're very fortunate that in our association together, we're hearing these things and we're appreciating that we are also experiencing and analyzing that how people are making advancement or not. That's there as well. In Ram and I were discussing in the prayers by the personified Vedas, Prabhupada gives the analogy that all the living entities are sparks, at the time of dissolution, they're all merged back into the body, of the Supreme Lord at different times, whether it's the partial or the ultimate dissolution. And then they come out again. And some sparks, some souls are compared to those which fall onto dry grass and immediately ignite. And others are not so, because you see when a spark falls on an area that has no tinder, then it doesn't ignite. It can fall on water. In New York, it can fall on snow. But in any case, it doesn't ignite. So you see some devotees come and very quickly they adapt to the process. Very keen to understand, because somehow or other, Suchinam, Srimatam, Gehe Yoga, Brashtak Pranta, but they're there from a previous life, exactly where they left off. Prabhupada went so far, even when the devotees asked, how is it that these certain individuals have a greater impact and influence? And the devotees asked specifically about the Beatles, and Prabhupada said because they're demigods. They were previously demigods. So it is not coincidental. It's not that everyone is exactly the same. But in Krishna consciousness, Vidya Vinaya Sampanye, we get the opportunity to evolve spiritually, to have that vision, to have that capacity to understand what's being presented to us by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. This is the miracle, as Prabhupada said. And he said, this is my miracle. But how are these people being brought into such a situation where practically impossible? And we've seen that due to conditioning, the most intelligent people cannot take to this process because they're so filled with their misconceptions. And the analogy that we used to use, and which Prabhupada also gave in various shapes and forms, is that a person of the teacher, a music teacher, who would charge one fee for students who didn't know anything, and another fee for students who had previously been exposed to a different system of learning. And when asked why, he said, because I have to unlearn whatever they've been mistaught. Whereas a new person, I can immediately begin to give them the correct instruction. So it's more difficult to, and we've seen with people who have these misconceptions, very difficult to, because there's no room for, they're not open-minded. They think they know it all. But a person who is simple, who comes to the temple, who's, how can you say, open-minded, he can hear, and because of that mood, Krishna allows him to understand on a priority basis. All right, Lord Chaitanya gave that patita pavana hetu tab avatar mosamo patita prabhu na paibhara, that there is no one more fallen I, therefore I beg priority. Because the Lord has come like that. We don't always get the opportunity in the beginning to consider ourselves in that fallen condition. But very quickly, if one is reading the Nectar Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, like we see that what is the qualification that we see that the 6 Goswamis, they were, because they were non-envious, they were appreciated by the rogues and ruffians as well as the gentle. And so this is our position also, is that we don't have this judgmental issue. Anyone who has that tendency has to unlearn it in order to be an effective preacher. You cannot disqualify people based on his misconceptions or his conditioning. Everyone is eligible. And so we've touched this point many times before. You know, we never know. Matter of fact, in India, it's a common saying. What is that? How do they say that in Hindi? Guest is God. And why? Because even Lord Ramchandra would go incognito into his kingdom and to try to find out how is everything going, but not directly, indirectly. And I would see, and of course he came upon that one person who was saying that he must not be very intelligent because he let Sita come back after she was out of the household, which is a very big deal in India. Prabhupada had said, just like when Krishna rescued the 16,000 queens from Banasura, he said, "You're free," and they were just standing there. He said, "Why don't you go?" He says, "Where can we go? We've been out of our house for so long. We're kidnapped. We cannot return to our family. No one will marry us." Of course, this is all Leela, but the point is, culturally speaking, that was probably supporting that issue, that a woman out of the house for 3 days, she cannot be married. So anyway, so in that case, so Krishna married those 16,000 queens. This is a very interesting point there. And so we have to also appreciate how these things are all tied together, that we don't judge. If we do, then you never know who could have come, but now due to, and whose fault is it actually? You never know. Why would you want to be in a position where someone had the opportunity and you denied them for whatever reason? So we see that sometimes you give a chance. It's not that you don't, but some people obviously you monitor them, you look at them, and then after they've had a chance and it doesn't work out, you say, just come on Sunday and associate with the devotees. And you don't tell them that they're not ready, or they say, we're just very friendly. Everything is friendly. So that like that fellow who's been coming lately, he's come to the temple. There's a reason that he's come to the temple. But somehow or other, he's not ready yet by Krishna's arrangement. So we have to, so anyway, so we're open to everyone. At the same time, we use our discrimination to at least give them prasadam, give them an opportunity, and then Krishna will do the rest. And like I said, we know so many individuals that came, especially, we ran a Bhakta program myself, Urjaswat, and later on Niranjan Swami and others, and Karmarupa. And so many people came to this Bhakta program and we've discussed this before, you would have given them 1 in 10 chances that they'd stay. And then that person became the most determined, most fixed up. But just superficially. It wasn't that we were trying to make a judgment, just that it appeared superficially. Like one person came, he couldn't even chant the mantra. He was so distraught, disturbed, whatever it was. And we sat him down in our little lounge on the 7th floor. And we used to have, the mantra in various ways, on the card, on the wall. And we'd sit a person down and give him the beads, and this person would just say, couldn't chant. We thought, if he can't chant, how is he going to make it? And like we thought, all right, we'll just give prasad and we'll see what happens. And after a day or 2 or 3, I can't remember exactly how, but this person became completely a different person. Completely different person. And then, just like a switch flipped on. And so like I said, you don't know. So you have to just let Krishna guide you in this respect as much as possible. We're always keen on watching security, making sure that nothing is there. So that's why guests, especially new ones, are always monitored. Everyone knows that, right? Everyone. You let somebody in the door, they're yours until they leave. Yeah, that's our standard policy. Nobody wanders around the temple, and Krishna's giving you an opportunity to preach, and that, but that is what it is in that respect. We have a very interesting, and again, this whole pastime of Lord Brahma pacifying Lord Shiva, it also reminds me of when Lord Nrsingadev appeared, and after he killed Hiranyakashipu, and the proportions are not properly exhibited in our paintings. There's Lord Nrsingadev was a huge avatar. From us it would appear to be like a gigantic mountain. He was so big. But they bring everything down, and the demigods are there, and the demigods can expand their size to anything they want, and they need to pacify him like they need to pacify Lord Shiva. But in this instance, even Lord Shiva was afraid to approach Lord Nrsingadev and present the garland and pacify him. His anger was so, how can you say, potent. So everyone was afraid. Not Lord Brahma, not Lord Shiva, not Lakshmi, none of the demigods could pacify. And then finally they gave the garland to Prahlad Maharaj, and so there we see that little deity in Mayapur, or in most places, Prahlad Maharaj, and in the picture to put the garland, 5-year-old boy. Prabhupada said, like pushing a child into the cage of a lion. In that respect, like pushing a child into the cage of a lion. You wouldn't do something like that. But the demigods, it's all Krishna's arrangement for them to get some instruction that they couldn't do it because they had no faith in that sense, that this avatar was actually Krishna. They'd never seen. Adbhut. Even Lakshmi. Of course, we understand it has to be a Leela. How could they not recognize? But they didn't. They didn't recognize that Nrsingadev was, Narasingha, half man, half lion incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And so they all hesitated. And so the only thing that counts in that narration, Prabhupada said, therefore it is not by seniority, but by sincerity. So it's by sincerity that one recognizes the Lord. Not by intellect, not by position. If Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva could not recognize, what are our chances? So Prabhupada said by sincerity. So by sincerity, everyone comes somehow or other by his past pious activities. And by sincerity, he's allowed to stay if he can maintain it, if he can keep it, if he cannot be distracted, by the external aspects of association. That, I'm living in a building, I'm in Brooklyn, and sometimes the water's not hot, sometimes I don't like this or I don't like that. These things are all meant to, how can you say, engage your intelligence in counteracting, just like defeating the atheist. You have to use your mind. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta compared it to brooms and shoes. In one sense, what would appear to be a crude analogy, but very appropriate. This is what it takes. But the normal, a typical savant, somebody who's studying the scripture, it wouldn't make any sense to them. Beat your mind with shoes and brooms, what does that mean? But the devotee who is trying sincerely to execute the process, he understands perfectly what that means. Because they're not trying to control their mind. They could care less. The mind can go wherever it likes. So only the devotee is really trying to control everything in this regard in order to access the highest level of what we can understand according to our different Tadara, Justamo, Bhava, Kama, Lobha, according to how we're elevating, how we're purifying ourselves from the conditioning of these modes of nature, up to the point where we can appreciate. You know, like what is pure love of God? You know, that this is what we want, and that this is the goal, and that if I can convince myself on one level to remain in the fire, then the ultimate goal is guaranteed. So therefore, sometimes it takes drastic methods, like constantly preaching to oneself with the broom or the shoes and defeating the mind. This is not, so like I said, it's for others outside of our Sangha, outside of our line, they cannot understand the effort required to achieve this level of purification. Sometimes even the devotees don't understand what it's required to achieve this level of purification. They're still trying to achieve it on their own through some independent activity, independent study. You know, they have a, but there's nothing further from the truth that if one thinks that somehow or other by my own strength of intellect or my own whatever, that I will be able to get close enough to have a higher appreciation than everyone else, he's simply living in an illusion. Right? Prabhupada very strongly condemned this in many ways, but it's not recognized externally. And people think, no, I can do this independently. I don't require anyone else. I just, the books are there, and they don't see the books connected to the spiritual master and the vow and the determination. They don't see it, tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya. They just see it as a book of information. I'm going to use it, just like the Mayavadis. I'll learn whatever's there. I'll process it by my intellect, and I'll act upon it however I think. You know. But without the blessings of the spiritual master, without this exchange, then there cannot be any realization. And so sometimes you'll see people become stuck, and they, in that state of limbo, they have a tendency to just create their own whatever path, without following the footsteps of the Goswamis or the Acharyas. And this is very, very dangerous, very dangerous. Or they look for something else that temporarily attracts them. And then they end up finding themselves outside. And because although it's not addressed directly, people think that the Mad Elephant offense is that I go to the Guru and like Bhrigu Muni and I kick Lord Vishnu in the chest. No, that's not. These offenses are three in kind, with the mind, body, and the words. Bhrigu Muni offended Lord Brahma first by his mind. And it said that Lord Brahma, even though he's in the mode of passion, he controlled his anger by his intelligence. So intelligence can control anger, even if one. And then, of course, Lord Shiva, Bhrigu Muni insulted him by words. And Lord Shiva, he couldn't control himself. Only his better half could control him. Because she didn't want him to get angry. Because when Shiva gets angry, the whole universe gets destroyed. And so she calmed him down. And then, of course, Bhrigu Muni went to Lord Vishnu, without saying a word, walked up to him and kicked him in the chest. And of course, tolerance is compared to the highest, you could call it an emotion, but it's an ability to control oneself. And it's considered to be the ultimate in, you could say, the development of consciousness in one sense. And so these offenses to the spiritual master are taking place on multiple different levels. It's not that externally, all of a sudden somebody leaves he's committed an offense, but you didn't see it, or you didn't hear it, but somehow or other it took place. And so these things have to be guarded against. And so in an association of devotees, we have the opportunity to observe each other. And therefore, by our association, we remain strong because we're supposed to be open to gentle corrections from our God brothers and God sisters. You know, it's not being done. I mean, I could care, in one sense, I'm not the temple president, but if I wasn't the temple president, it's no concern of mine if you come or don't come to Mangalarti. You know, there's in the old days before automobiles, they had it. What did they have that saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make him drink. And that's essentially what's going on here. Everything is here. I can't force you, though. Nobody can. By love, Prabhupada said yes. By showing this, demonstrating that, yes, of course, we want you to go back home, back to Godhead. What's the higher love than that? There's greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his friend. Of course, that's the Bible, but it's appropriate. So what are we doing here in this temple? We're laying down our life. We're giving up our lives to save our fellow man. And first and foremost, we're giving up our lives to save everyone who comes to the temple and everyone who joins. Otherwise, why do we want to make any extra effort? So out of love for Prabhupada, we want to do the right thing. And so this is how you will show your love for your spiritual master. You know, by developing this tolerance and compassion. You know, the ability to, overlook certain things and how to give this compassion in such a way as we've received it, without any, how can you say, strings attached. It's not that I'm compassionate to you only if I'm getting some reciprocation. Right, that was the other part of that pastime with Lord Nrsingadev and Prahlad Maharaj. When Lord Nrsingadev, it almost as if Prahlad Maharaj was insulted that I'm not, worshiping you, serving you, meditating on you, thinking that I'm going to get some remuneration. I'm not what is the word that he used? Banik. And where from that word banik, what do you get? You get baniya. It's not a mercantile exchange. And so and that's it. Ahoitikiya pratiyata yayatma supasedas. Anyabhilasata sunyam jnana karmadyanavatam. Anukulyena krishnarashonam bhakti uchite. Has to be completely free from those. Any desire for profit or adoration or exchange in any kind. Just freely, I'm worshiping you because I have understood, what my teachers have taught me. That sarva dhamma pratyajamami comes. I can, yes. Up to that point of surrender, because that's where we all need to be, up to that point of surrender. And to the extent that we're holding back, to that extent, then our spiritual progress is paused. And you're in control of the pause button. You can press pause, you can press play, you can press pause. You can do this unlimitedly, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. But you have to get to that point where you make that effort, you make that determination, you make that conviction that I will stick this process out. Come, what they say, hell or high water. So that type of conviction, that's the few good men that Prabhupada was looking for. That's what he said, the few good men. That's the motto of the United States Marines. But Prabhupada used that term, just looking for a few good men and ladies. And so this is our chance to get out of this material world once and for all. Right? And but that, again, you have to be convinced You have to be able to convince others. The two are there. If you're not convinced, you cannot convince others. If you're not faithful, you cannot show or demonstrate or exemplify faithfulness. People will not want to follow your example. So this is, we're all being, Prabhupada is putting a lot of burden on us in one sense. Because we've inherited, it's just like in a family business. When the founder dies, leaves it in the hands of his heirs, which could be his family members or not. And everything is successful, and now it's up to them to continue it. But in many cases, we see that after one generation, the enterprise is finished. Totally finished, because nobody took care. They didn't. They just squandered the assets and then abandoned the enterprise. And so this analogy is there. We have to decide that, is this mission worth my lifetime effort? And if you haven't made that decision at some point, then you will find yourself being tested by Maya continuously. She'll be feeding you doubts all the time. Why should I stay here? I can do this, I can go here, I can go there. But once you've made that commitment and conviction, and you've said, from this day forward, my dear Lord, I am yours, then Krishna takes charge. He will deliver you from all sinful reaction. But you have to make that effort. That decision at some point has to be there. It can't be philosophical, theoretical, past a certain point. Otherwise, you won't get the fruit of your endeavor. It will just be squandered. So don't, anyway, we have, eventually we want to pacify. And how do we pacify? Lord Brahma is personally going to Lord Shiva. Do we have to do that? We don't have to satisfy any of the demigods. Automatically, everyone is satisfied by the execution of devotional service. We have no duties or obligations to the forefathers or the demigods or anybody. We're not disrespectful, but we have no duties. We don't have to go and perform puja. Like every shop, you go to the shops in Vrindavan. What is the deity in every single shop? Ganesh. Every single shop. And what are they looking for? They're looking for, some material benefit. And that's okay. But from the perspective of the Vaishnava, he worships Ganesh because Ganesh removes all obstacles on the path of devotional service. But we don't worship, we worship him indirectly because we're worshiping Krishna. He's automatically helping us. We don't have to separately request it. All the demigods are assisting the devotees. And we don't, but if they don't see us dedicated to Krishna, then they won't continue their blessings. So we have to focus. All right, Vyavasayatmika buddhi, ekeha kurunanda, ekeha. So any questions or comments, or especially from Sri Gopal Pran? I know I have to make sure I spoke everything correctly. That's okay, somebody can translate.
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his disciple, they were having a talk, and then during the talk, the conversation goes in a way, and then at the end it comes, why aren't we making spiritual advancement? And Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur tells three reasons for that thing. First reason, he tells that you consider your spiritual master to be an ordinary person. You see him with your ordinary vision. That is one of the reasons of not advancing. Second, he tells about committing Vaishnava Aparadh, and considering other Vaishnavas to be of the same caste or creed and discriminating between them. And third is about not chanting the holy name attentively. So these are the three reasons he quotes for not making any spiritual advancement. I was just recollecting this when you were speaking about.
I'll have to let Arjuna and Nanda answer because I didn't even hear it.
I was just commenting what I have read.
Okay. And you told the audience, so that's good. And thank you for that. Any other questions, especially from those who are close by? Come up at the microphone. Because they can hear you directly in the phone, and I can hear you also.
All right, well, thank you for your class. I just have two questions. We usually see on Sundays a lot of people come on Sundays from every walk of life, and sometimes we meet atheists. So, what should you do if you don't have Shastra back, like to debate them? Should you just tolerate what they're saying, or should you try what you have?
Good question for all the preachers who are here, especially if you're there. We don't, in the temple, he was talking about what do you do if you meet someone in the Sunday feast and they just want to spew atheist philosophy to you. So essentially we say, like Satrup Maharaj was saying there, that said, so what, at least for 2 minutes, you don't waste more than 2 minutes time. You just say, what is the basis of your philosophy? You ask the question, let them see what they say. You try to walk them into understanding that is this something you just came about on your own from your limited worldly experience? Because if you haven't read the Bhagavad Gita, then you're not getting the benefit of this ancient, timely knowledge. And so this is something that you might want to take advantage of. And we have this just for you. It's an opportunity to give a person a Bhagavad Gita. And especially if they have questions, because if they have questions, it means they don't have answers. You do have to listen at least for a minute, and it's unfortunate that sometimes you have to hear them spew this nonsense. But Krishna will give you the insight how to respond. And then if they don't want to hear it, and that'll be obvious pretty quickly also, then you just say, well, we hope you enjoy this feast. And if you have any questions, I'm here, you'll see me, I'm going to go to help serve out or whatever. You just give it a nice excuse. You don't dismiss the person. You don't create an impression that you can't handle their discussion. Yeah. But you just politely give them a way, you give yourself a way out of it. And at the same time, you give them an opportunity to take a book like that. But say, a lot of atheists typically means they don't have a philosophy. They're just skeptical, and everyone in the material world is skeptical. And so, and a real atheist, someone who has, from his perspective, logic to support his arguments, he'll reveal himself very quickly. They have so many things. Well, if God is, all powerful, then can he create something that he can't lift? That's just their common, argument. They say, yes, of course he can, because his power is unlimited, so he can increase his power. It's not like he's not like these comic book heroes that you're familiar with. It says, do you understand what God means? That's the same thing that Prabhu was telling Satrup to say. Do you know what God is, or what God means? Because they have no definition. That's the point. But yeah, it's a good question, and like I said, don't waste your time, but give them a minute and to hear and see what the point is that they're trying to make. If they're just trying to prove that they're intellectually superior to you, then you just excuse yourself. That means that they have a lot of unfortunate blockage and they need to hear the holy name and eat more prasadam. And that's all. Bring them back up to the kirtan. So many, these atheists are not really difficult to defeat. They don't really have a lot. The pseudo-religious principles are much more difficult because people are embarrassed. They can't give something up because it will mean that they were wrong. Atheists too, same thing. And so we're not trying to minimize their misconception. We're just trying to open them up, give them a new perspective so that they can come to their own conclusion that there's something more, how can you say, complete. Right? Prabhupada in the Ishapanasha we're reading says these misconceptions arise from incomplete knowledge of the complete. And so that's the same thing we're dealing with these atheists. They have incomplete knowledge of the complete. And we have everything. But how to get it to them in a manner that they can start to appreciate that gently, that maybe I don't know everything. So that's it. So don't worry about preaching to them to any great extent. Just try to get a book in their hands as much as possible. What book are you using now to give to them? Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers is a good one. Science of Self-Realization is our standard, like that. And if they're open to reading Bhagavad Gita, that's great. We have the first purple Bhagavad Gita, no Sanskrit, just Prabhupada's continuous nectar flowing, and that's so many people became devotees. That was the first Gita published by ISKCON, the purple one. Have you seen that one? You never see the purple Gita? It's in the store. First Gita, first one I saw, and then now they have a reprint. Very, very potent, very powerful. There's nothing in there to distract you. None of the Sanskrit, none of the translation. People look at this book, they're sticking it. Oh, what am I going to do with that? But the abridged purple version, you get the essence very quickly. Any other questions, comments, corrections? I beg forgiveness for any.
I have another question.
Another question, Bhakti Michael. Okay.
Brahma describes Shiva as the manifest, maintain, and annihilator, but that sounds like all the qualities of Krishna.
Okay, so let's see what it says. Well, when he says manifest, okay, so have you read the Brahma Samhita?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the Brahma Samhita, the name given to Lord Shiva in this regard is Shambhu. So Shambhu is when it says that Mahavishnu glanced over the Mahat Tattva, which is the inert material elements, the cosmic manifestation, that cloud in the one portion of the spiritual sky. So it is set into motion by the glance of Mahavishnu. That glance is Lord Shiva, Shambhu. So Vishnu never touches the material anything directly. And so his glance becomes the activating force. So that's why you have the Shiva and the Linga. It's a little, it's not so easily understood. But if you try to apply yourself, you'll see. So in that sense, Lord Shiva is the potent force that sets everything in motion. And then Lord Brahma is the secondary creator of everything else. But yes, Lord Shiva is the initial impetus for the creation. You got that?
Thank you.
Read that Brahma Samhita again. It's clear in there, but it's a little, how can you say? You have to read Brahma Samhita with a dictionary, an encyclopedia, to understand Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's language. He's speaking on a platform which is very difficult for us neophytes to understand. But it can be done. Can be done. Any other questions? Everyone should read Brahma Samhita. At some point, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's words, very After the second, third time, it becomes clearer and clearer each time. Some of the concepts are way beyond what so mundane scientists understand. You know, this parallel universes, the simultaneous existence of multiple dimensions. That's all in the Brahma Samhita. And you know, how you can appreciate that the material world and the spiritual world are simultaneously coexisting on one plane. But you know, it's not for the us small jivas, but it's there. You know, when they say that, you know, you go to Bhadrak Ashram and you could see Vedavyas. I can't see him. But, you know, the demigods, Narada Muni, they can go see him anytime they want. You know, and they're all there, everywhere. And Prabhupada used to say, yes, the demigods are there listening. When the devotee said, nobody's coming to your lectures, Prabhupada said, no, what do you mean? He says, all the demigods are here. But we don't have that external vision. And what we can appreciate intellectually, that's the beginning. So try to appreciate it there, because gradually it will become an established fact. And your ability to use that to crystallize your faith in many ways, just like when you put an agent, it's like you put something in milk to turn it into yogurt. So all this information that we're gradually taking in conjunction with our devotional service, is gradually transforming that book knowledge into gyan, into vigyan, realized knowledge. And so these concepts become actual fact intellectually on a different level than just simply reading them and repeating them. So keep studying. Any other transcendental questions? We have a lot to do. It's Sunday. So many people, you never know who, you know, Ram Roy is looking for some devotees to join the Harinam. We need to make devotees. You can't make devotees if you're up on the third and fourth floor thinking it's your day off. Okay, you got to come down and be on the front lines. Okay, this is what the Sunday feast is for, to make it easy for us. Krishna is bringing them in at the front door. We have to capture their hearts and minds. We can't do it if we think that, no, I've got to study, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do my laundry. No. Not on Sunday. Not during the Sunday feast. Sunday's a big day. We've got so much time before the Sunday feast. They say, oh, but this crowd is they're not so receptive. You don't know who Krishna is bringing in. You're prejudging things, yes, then you'll be disqualified. That's the way it works. You have to constantly be thinking how I can assist, and Krishna will provide that another surrendered soul. They're everywhere. But we have to show Krishna our sincerity and our determination and our tolerance and our compassion. And then everything will happen. Nice day, Sunday. Sunday love feast. We used to wait all week. Big feast. Prasadam was very simple in the old days. It wasn't like the opulence that Jayananda cooking or any of the other cooks or the Raj Bhog cooks. No, it was nothing. Very simple. But Sunday was a feast. And we enjoyed the anticipation of meeting new people, sitting down and enjoying, the feast, and exchanging some nice discussions over ice cold sweet rice and everything like that. So you have to prime yourself that, yes, I can't wait to see who's coming tonight. And of course you have the darshan room and things like that. And you want to try to identify those who would feel comfortable in that setting. But you have to have more than just, you can't just, how can you say, there has to be someone at the door also who says, yes, there's a beautiful program down here in this way. And of course, there's another program this way, and there's another program here. We have so many programs. But there has to be, somebody has to be their usher to guide them into those places. So that's also an important service, to make sure that the right person gets to the right group, to get the right attention. Right? And of course, now that we have Tulsi and Pandava here, it's much easier. And Yugal Kishore will be giving the class this evening in the temple room, our newly appointed zonal supervisor. So let's make sure that he's also comfortable. Any other questions? Everybody's ready? You have to make sure that the whole temple's clean. The hallway that the guests walk down has to be spotless. Can't be cardboard boxes piled up on both sides. Everything has to be empty. Bathrooms have everything. You have to walk through there and think that if my spiritual master came down this hallway, would he be pleased? If he walked in that lobby, would he be pleased? That's the devotees, that's the disciples' mood. He doesn't have another alter ego. His mood is that, will my spiritual master be pleased by what I'm doing, what I'm seeing, what I'm cleaning? That's it. And then you'll get everything. Everything will come. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya. Okay. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his literary incarnation of Śrimad Bhāgavatam. All glories to all the assembled devotees. All glories to the Supreme Divine couple, Sri Sri Radha Govinda, and their associates, and all of our Ishta Devatas, who were here to try to invoke their blessings upon us fallen conditioned souls. How beautiful they appear. And this is so attractive. And we pray that all the fallen conditioned souls will be attracted by their beauty, as we should. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.